Okay, let's rip it. Here we go. Okay, so I'm trying a new thing out. I was doing the podcast, doing shooting from the hip. I'm trying something a little different this time, a little experiment here. I'm just going to go through specific things, specific topics. So rather than riff through a bunch of things once a week or once every 2 weeks or once every month, I'm going to go ahead and riff on a specific topic. I think part of this, honestly, is frankly just discoverability. If you talk about a specific topic on YouTube, shout out Greg Reyes for riffing with me on this. It's just easier for people to discover the content versus you shoot from the hip and talk about 30 different things. It's hard. You can put that in the description. You can put a title of a mishmash of things. It just makes it hard to target. So I think this will be chill. It's an experiment. I'm starting with this, so let's just dive right into it. So Visa, the payment processing company, released a blog post entitled "Making Digital Currency Interoperable," and this was posted on September 30th, 2021. I'm recording this October 1st, 2021. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the blog post and just react to it. So I'm going to go ahead and read through it. And I don't know if I'm going to do a full, I'm going to do this full outright, do the whole thing and then cut it up, or I'm just going to drop the whole episode. I think I'll at the very least do an edited version because, reading through the whole thing, it's so the blog post is only a couple pages, but then they have a research paper that I want to go through. And the research paper, I'll be straight up. So they have a blog post that's a couple pages, high level thing. Then they have a research paper that's about 13 pages where they really get into the nitty gritty. So oftentimes I can't understand, I'll be straight up, I can't understand a lot of the stuff that, especially these academic papers. I'll be straight up. A lot of it goes over my head, but you can glean some things from it. And I would encourage anytime, it's funny, anytime there's something like, oh, a company posted this thing, right? It's so easy to find like Decrypt, Cointelegraph, all these cryptocurrency news publications will talk about it rather than, it's hard to find. They won't even link to it a lot of the times, or if they do, it's hard to find. I'm always like, okay, I don't need a description of the summary. Their blog post is 2 pages. Why would I read a description of it when I can just fucking read it from the horse's mouth? So we're gonna talk about Visa, cryptocurrency. So just a basic level, shout out Lars. I know when I talk about cryptocurrency on the No Grading Show, he says something, it goes over my head. So I'm going to give a quick rundown on why cryptocurrency is important. There's a lot of great content out there. I think Chris Dixon is one of the clearest thinkers on the topic, and he really just lays it out. But just imagine, and this is the phrase he uses, computers that can make commitments. So you can think about the original Web 1.0, you'd have a server, people would visit your website. Boom. Web 2.0 is they would visit your website and then they'd leave comments, and that's actually in this academic paper. Or actually, that's another one. That's not this one. Excuse me. And then Web 3.0 and Web 2.0 is dominated by your Googles, your Facebooks, your big tech companies, your Amazons, your Microsofts, your big cloud providers that are actually hosting a lot of this stuff. Now, Web 3.0 and something that cryptocurrency allows for, Web 3.0 is bringing that decentralized nature back to the web, to its beginning roots. When Tim Berners-Lee started the web, he wasn't thinking that a bunch of companies are going to own all the data and provide all the data and all the services, and everyone's going to have to just host on that. Web 3.0 and cryptocurrency. Besides the payment stuff, you've often heard cryptocurrency in the. Oh, by the way, we're in Santa Monica. That's the pier behind me. I thought it'd be chill to do it somewhere where there's action, walking around, so that you can. It's not just looking at me. Usually I go in a secluded area, but this is pretty chill. People have been walking by on the other side of the camera. No one seems to think I'm that crazy. We're in Venice, Santa Monica area. You're seeing a lot of crazier shit than some dude with a mic recording himself. But cryptocurrency, a lot of times you talk about in the payment space, and it does allow for that. The first thing that comes to mind is Bitcoin. But what also, there's also Ethereum. That's the leading smart contract provider. So that allows, Bitcoin is pretty much a store of value. It's really meant for payments. They have things like the Lightning Network, which we'll talk a little bit more about, that allow for faster payments, lower fees. Lightning Network that's built on top of Bitcoin, and then Ethereum is something. Think of it. You can build. It's a smart contract platform, so you can build applications on top of it. So it's not just about payments; it's about actually building services on top of it. So that's the type of thing when I talk about Web 3.0. It's about building things on top of a decentralized network like Ethereum. Now, Ethereum's the leader. It might not be the winner. There's a whole bunch of players in the space, but right now Ethereum is where that's where most of the developers are. That's where most of the people are using these apps, and that's why I typically focus on it. But yeah, so there's a lot of cool. And let me just say, this is early days. It's still very early days. So it's a lot of experimentation, but there is hope, and I think there's a lot of hope with this technology. There's a lot of cool things you can do. A lot of technology starts out as a toy. The original iPhone didn't have a front-facing camera, didn't have 3G. It didn't have, what else didn't it have? It didn't have 3G. There's some other fundamental things, and famously, Steve Ballmer biffed it. He said it's too expensive. You can buy a Moto Q for $99, and well, we all know how that turned out. So, I'm really interested in space. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's just really, really cool. So fundamentally, take a step back. It's, as Chris Dixon said, it's computers that can make commitments. So what does that mean? It's computers that can make commitments. It's an open source network. It's decentralized, so there's not one. It's not as if a Google or a Twitter or a Tumblr. Famously, Tumblr got bought by Yahoo, and then all those blogs were just fucking eradicated. Think of Blogger. Google owned that, and that's no longer. They're no longer putting weight behind it. So. In Twitter, famously, they used to have open APIs, and Chris Dixon talks about it all the time. They used to have open APIs that anyone could build apps on top of, and that really helped bootstrap the network. And guess what happened? Twitter, and they've recently reversed course on this, but they shut down third-party apps. After that, helped bootstrap the network. So cryptocurrency networks allow you to actually get a piece of the pie. So you can think of a lot of things we get built on top of Ethereum, Compound Finance, who we had Max Roser was his, no, not Max Roser, that's the World and Data guy. Max Wolf, I believe is his name, Max C. Wolf. He came on. Compound Finance is an app. It's a decentralized finance app, allows you to lend out assets on their platform. They actually reward you for using the network. So they actually give you a governance token called COMP, C-O-M-P, compound token, that actually allows you to, damn, I am sweating. It's fucking hot as fook over here. But it allows you to actually take part in the network, or vote on different policies in the network, and it also allows you to vote on things, and it also allows you to accrue value from it. So you can actually sell this comp token and actually be rewarded for being an early user. And imagine building a third-party app for Twitter, and then them shutting down access. Ethereum, you don't have to worry about that. These new cryptocurrencies, you don't have to worry about that. Certainly, the network can change directions, but there's much less worry about that. There's not a central authority that's going to say, boom, you're done. It's computers that you can trust, that you can make commitments to, that if you build something on top of, it will be able to run in 10, 15, 30, 100 years from now. That's the goal anyway. And you can imagine all the things you can do that if you can trust that an application that you build is going to be able to run in perpetuity, what kind of doors does that open? What kind of new things can we build? And we're exploring that. Decentralized finance, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. There's all these things that are being built on, and it's a lot of experimentation going on. It's really, really fucking cool. But you can imagine the doors that can possibly open. Not to mention the lack of censorship resistance, and just plain old. Because frankly, not everyone agrees with Facebook or Twitter's moderation policies. Do they get it right 100% of the time? No. Do they try? Yeah, I think they do. They try, but they screw up a lot. And people have a lot of questions about that. It's not an open, and famously, not famously, but AWS recently started they are now having a moderation platform, so that, things that you host on AWS, they're going to play nanny on. And Visa, and MasterCard, I think, and famously, they restricted access temporarily, and then to OnlyFans, which is a website you can sign up for, and people can basically can post their nudes, call it what it is. I think. I'm honestly not a user. I'm not saying that out of moral superiority. I'm just not a user. I haven't used it. But you can post photos, videos, whatever, and people can pay you directly. And Visa and MasterCard were playing nanny, or it was one or the other. I forget which one. They were playing nanny. They were saying, no, we're not going to allow this. And famously, Pornhub got cut off. Now, whatever you think of porn, it does bring up some interesting things. Why shouldn't that? It's the government's job. The government decides what is a crime and what is not. It's not the payment providers. So it brings up interesting questions. Why are we entrusting a lot of these, these big companies are making decisions for us? And it's a very complicated issue. I'm not some... it's people like to view it in black and white, like, oh, just let everything just be on there all the time. Okay, fine. Then you're gonna have insane fucking shit on there, like insane. I do believe in objectivity. I do believe that there are things that are just bad. frankly. So there are things that and imagine if you're just working at a company like this, and then like a terrorist organization was literally bootstrapping their entire organization, which, there's, Taliban account. Look, and I'm just riffing again. I'm not even focused on this, but they're Taliban, Twitter accounts, like, people in the, it's hilarious. Like U.S. Congress people are getting censured by Twitter, but then you have the Taliban on there free will. Chinese state media is on Twitter, and then you have your own, American politicians that are getting censored. Now, it's just it's a complicated issue. I get that, but it's also, should we leave it in the hands of a tech company, people in Silicon Valley making those decisions for us? That's where it comes up. Okay, so I hope that was a quick, good kind of quick rundown. I'm going to read through this. This will be interesting because I'm burning up. I'm going to have to burn through this. So I'm just going to read through this, and we're just going to go through it. I'm going to read and just kind of react to it. So I've already read this blog post, but I want to read it. And the reason, okay, so let's get into what we're talking about today. Making digital currency interoperable. Visa has a new solution. They're talking about connecting a bunch of different blockchains. Like I said, there's several different ones, and potentially connecting Central Bank Digital Currencies, CBDCs, as they shorten them to. So they imagine this huge network in the future where there's all these different blockchains and all this different shit, and they're all just connecting. They're going to have a kind of a one-stop shop. They're going to be connecting all these different things together. Now, their subtitle is Visa Shares New Thinking on Cross-Chain Interoperability. Also, you might say, okay, who gives a fuck about what Visa says? Isn't cryptocurrency supposed to replace these guys? Well, let's take a step back, people. Visa's been in the payment business for decades. They know how to deal in a ton of different currencies, hundreds of different currencies, and transact payments all over the world. Same with MasterCard. They know a thing or two about payments. So to act as if they're completely deprecated because there's this new technology, cryptocurrency, is a little naive. It's possible that I think they'll still be here in 50 years. I really do. Who knows? I'm not saying one way or the other, but so I'm always very curious about what the big players in the space are saying. Anytime Amazon has a post on cryptocurrency, anytime Microsoft does, their Azure cloud supports Ethereum, AWS has some Ethereum node stuff. Google, I think, has been pretty mum. Cloudflare has a lot of stuff on it. Anytime a big player in the space, think of your Web 2.0 companies, has or even just your Visas of the world. These big companies have an opinion on cryptocurrency or release something about it. I always listen because these guys aren't blowing smoke. They have shareholders to answer to. They have to run a fucking business. Okay, so they're not just gonna blow smoke and tweet out some bullshit and then say, okay, no. They're running a business and they're gonna explore this tech and see what the deal is. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes and just be absolutely tone deaf and not understand how this stuff works. I get that. IBM famously with their blockchain ad campaign, which was just totally ridiculous. It was just like blockchain. Well, if you run the whole blockchain, it's just called a database. That's nothing new. Blockchain is special because it's decentralized. Anyone can participate in the network. I can start a node right here with a solar panel, a satellite, boom, and no one can say I can't. IBM, does your blockchain allow that? No. And a lot of times people say blockchains, and I'll talk about this. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So I'll go through the blog post. I'm going to read through it. So like I said, I think I'll have one where I just read through this whole thing, where if you want to listen to the whole thing, listen to every word. And I'll give my hot takes as I go. And then I'll do an edited version, I think, which is going to be, that might be pretty brutal. I might even write it, because to go back and edit, I'll be straight up. Here, I'm actually stalling for time. I'm going to bring my pen out. Let's just see here. We're still recording there. Yeah, we're still recording, bro. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's bring the pen out, because editing this might be just an absolute du jour, but it's an experiment. Let's rip it. Okay. Here we go. Imagine this is their post. I'm just reading it verbatim, and then so I've read this blog post. I haven't read the research paper, so I'll react to the research paper live. A lot of it's going to go over my head. I'll be straight up, but maybe you know more than I do, and you'll be able to listen to it while driving or whatever, doing your thing. But Yeah, the blog post I have read, but I'll still, I'm going to go through it again. Okay, here we go. Imagine splitting the check with your friends when everyone at the table is using a different type of money. Some using a central bank digital currency or CBDC, like Sweden's e-krona, and others preferring a private stable coin like USDC. How about sending $500 in USDC to a friend in London and having those funds automatically converted to digital British pounds before they arrive in her CBDC wallet? Now imagine all this happening in real time across multiple networks and compatible with multiple digital wallets. Okay. So a beautiful thing, I've talked about USDC a lot. It's a stable coin by the Circle Foundation. It's a US dollar backed stable coin. So for every actual coin that they have, ERC20 token, they actually have $1 in reserves in an actual bank account. And that's important because it keeps the value of the dollar and people can trust it. But also, so anyway, I was just riffing with, we have an Epic, I run a software studio. Shout out Sawyer Billings, and we have full send team members all over the world. And we one of our devs in Singapore, epic dude. We've been riffing on, okay, what when he first joined, I was like, well, bro, do you want me to pay you in cryptocurrency? Would that be chill? Like, just to experiment with it. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I kind of get that. And then recently he brought it up again. And I was like, and I talked to my accountant. He said, don't do it. Within the country, and he's not some antiquated dude. My accountant was like, he's dealt with cryptocurrency stuff before. He said if he's living in the United States, yeah, sure, that's a whole different story. But doing cross-border cryptocurrency, you're just asking for it. And I don't want to, I'm not that much of a harder that I want to try it out. Then I want to put my biz at risk and have to do this audit bullshit and deal with all that. So, what The fundamental thing about it's great that you can send USDC to anyone with a phone anywhere in the world, which is incredible. Now, Ethereum fees are super high, so it costs a lot more than it used to. When I first started talking about USDC, it was a few cents or something. Now it's like $17 or something like that, something crazy, a lot higher. So now it's it's prohibitively expensive, especially if you're splitting a check. But one of the big issues, and even just doing remittances, even if you're not talking about USDC, you're just sending Bitcoin to, remittances are, multi-billion-dollar industry. People, for example, come to the United States and they send money back home. People do this all over the world. Great, you can send Bitcoin to someone back in Mexico. Okay, great. How do they convert that to something they can actually use? Maybe they can go to a Bitcoin ATM that gets them pesos. Maybe they can't. Can they convert it from their bank account? Is there an exchange they can use? You need to think about the last mile. You don't just give them Bitcoin, then they can use it. It's like, okay, well, now what? Same with USDC. If I send someone USDC to a European dude, okay, that's great. What's he going to do? Does he have access to an exchange that he can then convert that to actual euros? That's a whole other ball game. So it's something to think about. So I'll go on. In the not too distant future, this very well may be a reality, but getting there will take solving one key problem: cross-chain interoperability. In other words, how do you get different digital currencies relying on different tech stacks and protocols with different compliance standards and market requirements to talk to each other in a wider network of value? Visa's research and product teams have developed a new concept to move the conversion forward. We're calling it a universal payment channel, and it acts like a hub, interconnecting multiple blockchain networks and allowing for secure transfer of digital currencies. Think of it as a universal adapter among blockchains, allowing central banks, businesses, and consumers to seamlessly exchange value no matter the form of the currency. We're excited to share the mechanics of UPC in our research paper, as well as policy guidance for central banks and regulators on the implication of this research from the Visa Economic Empowerment Institute. So it's funny because I was just talking about one of the great things about USDC has actually they comply with regulation, right? Even though it's on Ethereum, or they comply with the law as as you should. We have laws for a reason. But they've blacked out wallet addresses before, but basically frozen wallet accounts, frozen wallets that have USDC when there's been scams or fraud or anything like that. So it's not total freedom, but something like Bitcoin, yeah, you can't. No, it's the Bitcoin network's not going to stop anything. Now, what you can do is if I knowingly, and Coinbase does a lot of they engage a lot with regulators, the criminal. Mostly they engage with I'm sure FBI, they talk about this, to try to fight crime. So they know that if I knowingly receive Bitcoin, like I know they do a lot of terror funding stuff. They monitor blockchain, there are different blockchain networks to check for terror funding. terrorist organization funding. If I receive a Bitcoin from a terrorist, they know that that was from a terrorist funding event. And I receive it. They're not going to let me trade it on their network. That wallet will effectively be blackballed, and they're not going to accept my Bitcoin and allow me to convert it to US dollars on their exchange. Now that's and you shouldn't be able to do that. But the difference is they can't freeze my wallet. Bitcoin can't. I can still do whatever I want with that Bitcoin, and maybe another jurisdiction doesn't care about terrorist organizations or doesn't have the capability to care, and they let me transact with that Bitcoin and say, okay, perfect, I'll send it to my I'll send it to someone I'm working with in Pakistan. Boom, send it to them, and they don't. Then maybe their government isn't worried about that. They can convert it to something, or they can use it, or who knows what. But USDC, because it is from an actual U.S.-based organization, the Circle Foundation with Coinbase as a founding member, I think it's called Center, not Circle. Anyway, they can actually freeze wallets. They actually have a way to do that. That's built into USDC, so that they do that so they can. It doesn't become a crime hotbed. Okay, right on. So anyway, the point I was trying to get to was the universal payment channel. So they're talking about how they're gonna connect all these blockchains. That doesn't solve the problem of what I was just talking about earlier, where they're cutting funding from Pornhub or cutting funding from OnlyFans or cutting funding from who knows what in the future and preventing you from being able to transact. Now, I'm not acting like Visa is making this really difficult and people can't spend money and shit like that. I'm just saying it's a reality of the situation. Now, their universal payment channel, just because I'm sure that is going off chain. They're converting it from, let's say they want to convert Bitcoin to euros or Bitcoin to USDC or whatever. That's going off the blockchain, off a decentralized service into their centralized service, so they can do what they want with it, and then they're spinning it back out the other side. Now it's that middle part that is very interesting. How much regulation are they going to do? How much nannying are they going to do in that? And I bet you the same amount that they do with their current payments. I don't think they're gonna change change it at all. So it's an interesting, and granted, this is an academic thing, but they're definitely looking to do it, and I'm sure they actually have some open source stuff on GitHub right now with some of their smart contracts that they've written on the Ethereum blockchain. So they're definitely serious about this. Okay, let's continue. Why cross-chain interoperability matters for CBDC. Before we dive into the specifics, let's address a burning question. If many of us are already splitting checks and tipping for services with existing financial tools and traditional currencies, why might we need a universal payment channel? Well, quickly I'll say, if you've ever been to Europe and try to split money, they don't have like a Venmo equivalent, or maybe they do. But if you put it this way, if you're from the United States and trying to send money to anyone in Europe, it's a fucking pain in the ass. I was hiking the PCT over here. We had a lot of Europeans on the trail, and like getting money from those motherfuckers. Jesus Christ, it's unbelievable. Last time I'm paying for an Airbnb, Jesus. But anyway, you had to use PayPal or some shit. It was just a pain in the ass. So because we're two different types of currencies, two different types of banks based in two different continents, it's a pain in the ass. You got to just exchange cash. Literally, we're still using cash. 2021. Like, I do think cash is important. I think it's cash is an underrated technology, actually. If I give you $20 and you give that to someone else, and you give that to someone else, you give that to someone else, there's no trace of it. That's a private transaction that is very privacy preserving. The money just changes hands. There's no record of it. A credit card, there's records. Venmo, there's records. Cryptocurrency, there's records. There's things like Tornado Cash, which is a very interesting project, which recently gave governance to the community so that the community could actually operate the network. So they don't have a backdoor key or anything like that. It allows you to actually, lack of a better term, wash money, launder Ethereum. So you put your token in this contract, and then it comes out the other side, and a bunch of people put it in, and a bunch of people take it out the other side, and you don't know from whence it came. So if A, B, C, and D put it in, and then there's 4 withdrawals, you don't know whether that was A's withdrawal, B's withdrawal, C withdrawal, or D withdrawal. And the more people that use it, the more actually privacy preserving it becomes. Very interesting things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if something like Tornado Cash, Coinbase just literally did not let you sell any Ethereum on their exchange if you run it through Tornado Cash, because they can't verify where it's been. If they know it's been matched to a terrorist organization, then it goes to Tornado Cash, comes out the other side. Well, boom. It's over. How do they know where it's from? So it's very interesting. So also Monero, which is a privacy-preserving cryptocurrency. There's no trace. They don't. Coinbase doesn't support it. And then Zcash, which is another privacy-preserving one, they only allow unprotected wallets. So Zcash has 2 modes. It's a fork of Bitcoin. Zcash has two modes. They have you can do a transaction that is private, so no one can see to who it went to and for how much, or you can do a regular transaction like a Bitcoin transaction. Well, not a Bitcoin transaction, it'd be a Zcash transaction, but similar to Bitcoin in that you send a transaction, you can on Bitcoin you can see from which wallet it came and to which wallet it went to. So Zcash doesn't allow transactions for protected wallets, which is, it makes sense. I mean, I get it. It's interesting. Here we go. While digital currencies may not be part of your daily financial life today, it's likely that they will play an important role in the future. Over the past 2 years, central banks around the world have shown an increasing interest in exploring CBDC, a new digital form of central bank money that can be used directly by consumers, merchants, and financial institutions. Central Bank Digital Currency. That's what CBDC is. In the coming years, many central banks will likely implement some form of digital ledger. Central banks will select the tech stacks and design protocols that make the most sense for their constituents, taking factors like governance, market requirements, technology providers, compliance standards, and nation-specific priorities into consideration. As the number of digital currency networks increases, each with unique design characteristics, the likelihood that consumers, businesses, and merchants are transacting on the same network and utilizing the same type of money decreases. We believe that for CBDCs to be successful, they must have two essential ingredients: a great consumer experience and widespread merchant acceptance. It means the ability to make and receive payments regardless of currency, channel, or form factor, and that's where Visa's UPC concept comes in. So let's talk about central bank digital currencies for a second. Don't you say, don't I already have my Bank of America account. I already have my Chase account. My money's on there. It's on my screen. I can see it. I can see the amount I have, and I can send it to someone. Isn't that a digital currency? Isn't that digital? Well, actually, no. And here's the big difference. When you see your balance of $1,000 in your checking account on Bank of America, that's Bank of America saying you have that $1,000. That is very different than you having $1,000 of cash in your pocket. Now, if you have $1,000 in Bank of America, now we have thank our lucky stars. God bless this beautiful country, the United States of America, for all its faults. We're a damn great country, and we can trust our banking system like a lot of countries can. They can trust their banking system. I don't think Bank of America is gonna just say, oh no, you actually have $500. There's not a history of that, and I'm not worried about it. What is it? FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Company. What is that? That policy actually. What is it? It allows you to. The government backs up to $250,000 in a bank account. So if the bank goes under, you're guaranteed that you'll get your money back if you have if you have up to $250,000. Now, I was reading something that single policy is very cheap to implement because it's hardly ever has to be used. But what it does is it prevents runs on the bank. So if a bank is, think of the last financial crisis, or 08, 09, the great financial crisis, and then with COVID, if people had to worry about, if this bank goes under, I got to go get my money out, and there's a huge run on the bank, that actually caused a lot of problems in the Great Depression. And I forgot when this was started. I think within a couple decades of that. But a lot of people would run on the bank, and then the banks didn't actually have all the money. They were loaning some out. They were doing shit with it, and then the bank would just absolutely collapse. Now this insurance policy, people know that they don't have to go get their money in the bank before it collapses, and thus actually that prevents them from collapsing. So it's a very cheap policy. I love good policy, good cheap policy that works. There's a lot of policy that doesn't. But FDIC, boom, it's a very effective policy. No, when's the last time you heard, I got to go get my money out of the bank? People would look at you like, what the fuck? In other countries that happens. Lebanon, that happened in Afghanistan. Then other countries that happens, absolutely, but not in the United States. Not in frankly developed nations. It's just not a worry. In the United States, we can thank the FDIC for that. But the central bank digital currency. So, what's the difference? So I just went on that monologue about B of A. A CBDC, when you have $1 in your pocket, that's $1. You have that dollar. When you have $1 in Bank of America, it's Bank of America says you have that dollar. They actually have the dollar, but they say you have the dollar. If you have a central bank digital currency, if you have a dollar, CBDC in your electronic wallet, that is yours. It's not someone saying you have it. It's actually the federal government saying, yeah, that money's yours. There's no intermediary. It actually cuts out the bank because you are just storing it. Now, there's a couple different things here. If two things, if the U.S. government had a central bank digital currency and everyone switched to that, and let's say they had a great app and it was very easy to use, blah, 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 and people stop giving their money to banks. I would read one thing that would actually hurt. That would hurt the economy. Why? Because then they don't have as much cash to loan out. Because when you give money to a bank, what do they do with it? They loan it out. It depends on what, there's different types of accounts, checking account, they have all these capital controls and shit, but basically they do something with that money. Economic activity is created with that money. If everyone says, okay, fuck Bank of America, fuck the banks, I'm not going to store my money there, I'm just going to store it directly with the government, bada bing, bada boom, then that cuts the bank out. Now, this raises another issue. I don't know if you ever used a fucking government website. I mean, we all have. It's absolute dog shit. And I actually think in a lot of ways it's a feature, not a bug. I do think we need to modernize a lot of shit, like forming my business with Sawyer in California, like and going through all that bullshit and the California franchise tax board. It's an absolute nightmare. It's what I should say. It's okay. The California franchise tax board website is okay, but it's still a pain in the ass. I'm still getting mail. I'm getting mail from the IRS. It's a pain in the ass. Now, it is a pain in the ass. It's not as efficient, but efficient governments are scary. For the same reason that we don't know, it's very hard we don't know who has the vaccine. We have a little piece of paper. Like our government, we don't have a central health, record of everyone's healthcare history and all that stuff. And there's a lot of things where this is a pain in the ass. You go to the DMV, it's a pain in the ass. You try to start a business with all the paperwork. The paperwork's a bit of a pain in the ass. Anytime you do things, filing your taxes is a pain in the ass. And that, I do think a lot of this stuff can be modernized, but it's also a feature. A government that can operate very efficiently is a government that can destroy your rights quickly. It can operate effectively, and it can take things from you very, very quickly. There's a lot of things, because I don't want a government, our government having all our healthcare data. Could they do a lot of cool stuff with that? Could they do a lot of things that help us? Sure, but now they have all my healthcare data, and who's looking at that? With the Snowden Leaks, which I think is one of the biggest things that happened in the last 2 decades. Absolutely. Up there with 9/11 in terms of how people thought about the world and the exchange of information. I don't want famously, Snowden has shared that people in the NSA were collecting a bunch of data, and guess what? People were looking at what their exes were doing. I don't want a government that has all my has all the history of everything I've done, everything I've been, all my transactions. They have to subpoena Bank of America when they want to see my transactions. They have to earn the right to get that. They have to win in court. Now, the Snowden thing, quickly, they had secret courts that were proving bullshit, and it was an infringement of our rights, absolutely. And I'm Snowden. Thank you for your service. But a CBDC, you would just be working directly with it would have the government would give you an app. Now imagine the government giving you an app. Now Bank of America, Chase, the websites are okay. They work. They've got solid apps, whatever. They implement Face ID. Yeah, it's chill. Imagine having dollars with the government and having an app that they've fucking created. It would be a fucking nightmare. Now maybe there's some things they can do that make transactions faster. So maybe Bank of America is still holding the CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, and then they can do faster transactions, do things with that. I probably think that's where we're going. I don't think Biden's all going to give us a wallet app that some crack team of absolute dog shit developers created. Now we're all stuck with this fucking wallet, and it's like, well, did this really solve anything? We're now using a shitty app, shitty website from the government, and it's an absolute nightmare. No, I don't think we're going to move to that. And I think it also gives the government a lot more control. And I like separation of powers between private companies, between the government, between individuals. It's actually a beautiful thing. It's a feature. So that was a little bit on CBDC. Okay, so let's continue. A network of blockchain networks. The story of UPC. Now UPC is their, let's go back, their universal payment. What is that? That's their universal payment thing. What is that? Where do they define this? Universal payment channel. The story of UPC begins in 2018. The Visa research team, a group of scientists and engineers focused on emerging technologies, began developing a framework for interoperability that would work across different blockchain networks and be independent of the underlying blockchain mechanisms. The UPC hub concept that emerged would connect different blockchain networks by establishing dedicated payment channels between them, whether that means connecting CBDC networks between countries or connecting CBDC networks with vetted private stablecoin networks. New trusted blockchains could easily be added to the network of networks by creating new payment channels within the UPC hub. And I should point out that there's other projects. Polkadot is one project that comes to mind, but there's other projects that actually allow cross-chain communication that allows me to, do something on Bitcoin and transfer that to Ethereum. Then this is a very interesting, it's a space that absolutely needs to be explored because there's going to be a ton of, you want a bunch of blockchains. You want a lot of competition in the space. You want them doing different things. You want them to be experiment. The more competition, the better. And you want them to be able to talk to each other in a secure way. Frankly, I would trust a decentralized service that allows you to talk between cryptocurrencies versus this universal payment channel. But that's just in terms of just just basic level of trust. Like obviously, I've used Visa credit cards, whatever. I'm not some hardo, but I'm just saying in terms of when I use trust, I mean like, if I want to make sure that this money's going to the wallet I send it with Bitcoin, I know 100% that's going to happen. As long as I pay the fee, 99.9999, it's going to happen. It's going to go to that wallet, which is an amazing, amazing thing. You cannot say the same about any other payment service in the world. I don't care Bank of America, what. You don't know. All it takes is someone to turn the servers off. All it takes is someone to say, you know what? No, this is fraudulent. This is a fraudulent. We're going to have to look into this. We'll get back to you in 10 days. Yeah, it doesn't happen often. I do transfers all the time. Venmo works great. I get that. But if I want to be sure that money's going to, especially cross borders, if I want to be sure, I'm going to use something like USDC, Bitcoin. And frankly, in my day to day, I'll be straight up. I don't use it day to day. I don't transact with it day to day. I'll be straight up. This is just hilarious. I won't name it because it's a lowbrow thing to do, but a major cryptocurrency publishing, journal, website, news website. I want to do some. I applied to do some freelance shit. I was like, I want to write about this shit, whatever. I didn't end up getting the gig because they found out that I only wrote for No Gradient, which is my own fucking blog. And they're like, wait, what? I was like, well, Beasters, you let me in the door. Like, didn't you actually? I said it was anyway. It was absolutely hilarious. But they shit canned my ass before I even wrote anything. It was epic. But I was like, it's happening to the payment. I'm reading how to get paid. I'm like, blunt smoke, like, and it was all you had to give them my bank information. I'm like, guys, if we're not using cryptocurrency, who the fuck will? It was very eye opening. And granted, honestly, and I'm running my business now. I'm not sending cryptocurrency all over the world. Like, it's a pain in the ass. It's not ready. So I get it. But at the time, or at least give the option to, like, I don't know. It was like, yeah, here's how you get paid. Give us your bank. I'm like, blunt smoke? Rip the bong? What? Come on now. Anyway, it was just an interesting moment. Okay, here we go. More than advance a vision for interoperability, UPC also has implications for transaction speeds and digital currencies. Where today's modern payment networks can handle tens of thousands of transactions per second, like Visa, some of the largest existing blockchain networks can currently handle only a fraction of those volumes. UPC's specialized payment channels would be established off the blockchain and leverage smart contracts to communicate back with the various blockchain networks, delivering high transaction throughput securely and reliably and improving speeds overall. I love it. It's kind of a wordy, delivering high transaction throughput and improving speeds. Isn't that improving speeds? I guess the speed to confirmation. I don't know. They're throwing a lot of words at us. But the thing is, they're only as fast as the networks that they're talking to. So they talk about them being able to speed up. If you connect Bitcoin and Ethereum and you put this universal payment channel between it, it doesn't speed it up because I got to go from Bitcoin to UPC, then from UPC to Ethereum. And those the Bitcoin, the block time's about 10 minutes, and Ethereum block time's about 15 seconds. So it would take at least, it's going to take, I have to wait that amount of time. Now, there's probably other cool stuff you can do if you're using like the Lightning Network, which isn't as secure on Bitcoin, but it is faster and lower fees. Maybe they're going to use something like that, which is totally possible. But it's something to think about. You don't just add something between things that can just speed it up because you got to wait on either side. While UPC would exist in the background for most users, it would deliver the kind of cross-chain interoperability that makes CBDC useful and attractive for consumers and businesses globally. I think this is a great sentence because I think cryptocurrency in general, I think when it hits us, people aren't really going to know they're using it. It's going to be behind the scenes. It's not going to be something that people know they're using necessarily. But certainly there are things that there are certain things where I think people will know this is a cryptocurrency. But for the most part, I think once it's here, it's just going to be here. I think people don't know that they're using, in the same way people don't know they're using AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or Cloudflare's CDN network or whatever. They don't know they're using when they go to a website. They don't need to know. They don't give a fuck. Who gives a shit? I want the thing to do the thing. So that's an interesting. I think it will fade in the background. Who's it? Walt Mosenberg talks a lot. Computing is just going to fade in the background, and it's constantly. Benedict Evans has this epic thing where he says, "You used to be able to count the amount of motors in your kitchen, like in the 40s or something. Like there weren't very many, maybe one or two or something. You had a laundry machine or whatever." The interesting thing on this little tangent, during the Great Depression, a lot of consumer goods were actually created. So we look back at the time, I think Peter Thiel riffs on this. You look back at a time, in fact, he definitely has talked about this, yeah. You look back at a time when, Great Depression, nothing was done. Well, when we came out of the Great Depression, there were, after World War II, or during World War II and after, all these consumer goods exploded. People started purchasing a shit ton of shit, department stores, cars, etc., household items, laundry, egg beaters, and all that stuff was invented during the Great Depression. But then there was finally the consumers could actually spend money. They had money to spend. They had extra money, and then boom. I always think that's an interesting thing to think about. When we think about the Great Depression, you just think of dust everywhere, everyone's dead, starving. No, innovation was still going. As long as humans are alive, they will keep innovating. As long as they can talk to each other, and as long as they can form businesses and transact, there will always be innovation. I mean, look at the virus. The amount that we were able to still transact and still do day to day. A lot of people got fucked. I'll hold space for that. A lot of people that can't just do their jobs from their computers with the internet. They got to go in somewhere. And yeah, but the fact that so much of our economy was able to even keep running is absolutely ludicrous. The fact that it was even run at all. The fact that it's just an absolute incredible. We really live in a fantastic time. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Just got to look around. Okay, so a network working for everyone. Ultimately, the UPC solution aims to serve as a network of blockchain networks, adding value to multiple forms of money movement, whether they originate on the Visa network or beyond. We're excited to share this concept with the global community of researchers, builders, and policymakers exploring new frontiers in money movement. As we continue our applied research, we're working to translate our ideas into actual lines of code. Check out a sample of our basic smart contract for UPC. Welcome your comments and technical feedback to our UPC design at universalpaymentchan@visa.com. So one thing I do want to, which I don't think they clearly said, and frankly, I don't know how long it's been. I think it's been at least 30 minutes. If I read this whole research thing, it's going to be an absolute du jour. I will read the abstract at least. I'll read that, but this is going to be too long, and this is an experiment. I'm going to try to do this more with just read through things and riff on them. But reading this 13 pages, this was 2 pages, took me 30 minutes. So reading this, I'm burning it up in here, call it what it is. But one thing I do want to talk about, they talked about blockchain networks. They didn't really draw a line in the sand between central bank digital currencies, which are still very new. There's the e-chrono, which I think has limited use. I don't think it's full rollout. And then you have blockchain networks. Blockchain and CBDCs are very different. They're very different. When you hear blockchain, a real blockchain, people talk about private blockchains. It's called a database. That's not. Yeah, you could have J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, and Chase all agreeing we're going to have a private blockchain. That's fine. Maybe you can use some type of ledger technology that's similar to a public blockchain, but a private blockchain is just. Why not just use a database then? Why not just to have API credentials of all the banks and it's like just who can do that? Maybe I'm simplifying it, but I mean that's the way I think about it. Just call it a database. That's okay. Databases are great. The whole fucking world runs on them. That's all totally chill. But blockchain is very different than CBDC. CBDC is central authority, owns the currency. It's a fiat currency, which means it's government backed. A blockchain is, and the way I use blockchain, it's a public network. Even some things that call themselves blockchains, I do not believe are blockchains. A blockchain is a public network that anyone can join and transact on without permission. So anyone can set up a node with a computer and join the network and start verifying transactions. I'm an old spot in Venice. I had me and Pa had a Bitcoin network node running and Ethereum node running. Now we weren't doing mining. That's a different thing. We were just verifying transactions and just spreading them out through the network, just running a node. We didn't have to get API credentials. We have to sign up. We just joined the network. There was no permission. There's no sign up. And no one knows who we are. We don't have to ask for permission. It's permissionless. We just did it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you can do that. It's fantastic. That's what makes a blockchain so powerful. You can join it. No one needs to give you permission, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, which is very different than a CBDC. So, they kind of conflated them here a little bit, in my opinion. They could have been more clear about what would the difference be, because connecting to Uncle Sam fiat payment rails is very different than connecting to crypto rails. And I think absolutely. I think this sounds like a reasonable idea. There's going to be a lot of things going on. A lot of cryptocurrencies talking to each other. Cryptocurrencies mixing with fiat. Like I said earlier, I send USDC to someone in Europe. Well, then they got to convert it. What if it automatically converted? Well, that's an epic thing. That's really fucking cool. And actually, Coinbase took us part, and there's other credit cards or debit cards and that support this, but Coinbase took a step. You can get a debit card with Coinbase. I got one of their debit cards, and what's cool about it is someone could pay me in USDC. And before the Coinbase debit card, I would then have to send that to my bank, and then I have to wait because it had to, the transfer would take a day or so. With Coinbase, if someone sends me USDC, I can spend it right away because it's on my debit card. Boom, it's there. It's in my account, which is and then recently they just announced, Coinbase announced that you can connect to your payroll provider, and you can actually get paid through I don't exactly know how it works, but you can authenticate through your payroll system, and it'll send the money right to your Coinbase account. So you can just throw it enlarge your bag that you're holding. Right on. Sweet. Well, this was epic. I'm not going to do the research paper. I'll link to it in the show notes. I mean, let me do the abstract real quick. Universal Payment Channels Interoperability Platform for Digital Currencies, abstract. With the innovation of distributed ledger technology, DLT, we'll call that DTF, Dick to Floor. That is hilarious. Epic, Silicon Valley. Shout out Season 1. Often known as blockchain technology, there has been a significant growth of digital tokens in the form of cryptocurrency, stablecoins, and central bank digital currencies. As the number of DLT networks increases, each with varying design characteristics, the likelihood that transacting parties are on the same network decreases. Thus, it is crucial to facilitate payments that are universal across networks, scalable to massive loads, and highly available. We envision a future payment network that may be built on top of DLT networks without being subject to the limitations on interoperability, scalability, and availability faced by DLT payment solutions today. Specifically, we propose a hub-and-spoke payment route, referred to here as universal payment channels, that can be used to support digital token transfers of funds across different networks through payment channels. We further discuss the potential use cases of the UPC technology to support and not complicate an already robust digital payment ecosystem. Finally, through the paper, we share some future directions of the UPC technology. It actually sounds like some interesting stuff in here. Maybe next time I'll just read the whole thing, give a quick rundown. I don't know. I'm experimenting with this new show type. I think talking about specific things, being able to link to it. Because frankly, between you and me, I can now link to this. Like some of the people that tweet about this, I'll say, "Yo, I did a rundown on this where I read the whole blog post and I riffed on it. Maybe you'll find it interesting." Versus, "Yo, go to minute 20 of my podcast where I talked about it for 10 minutes and then ignore the other stuff." Yeah, you can do that, and I'm sure YouTube and podcasting apps are starting to make that easier to do, to link to specific sections. But it's like, plus I think it's it's cool to talk about one specific thing and just rip it. Now, generally, I want to take a step back and just talk about cryptocurrency, just in general, where I think about it. I think a lot of people ask me, strictly, not talking about what apps can I use and what things they're talking about. Okay, what should I do? Should I invest? Here's what I'll say. I always say the same fucking thing. Always the same thing. Don't invest any more than you're not willing to lose. I'm not going to act like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are the two major ones. Now, those are the ones that I personally have the vast majority of, not my net worth in, but of my crypto holdings are, it's mostly Ether, some Bitcoin, and some spread across a bunch of other things just because, as Pa says, sprinkle the infield. I would not consider this a retirement strategy. Wouldn't necessarily even consider it an investment strategy. When I think of investment and I think of building wealth, I think of what's going to be here in 20 years. The U.S. stock market's going to be here in 20 years. The vast majority of my net worth is in index funds. It's in the stock market. It's in the U.S. stock market. I just buy the whole market. I have some in individual stocks because it's fun. I want to support companies, and I think it's cool to pick winners and losers. But I don't think that that's actually going to build wealth over the long term. What I'm really banking on that is the stock market. That's what's going to build wealth in the long term. Now, with cryptocurrency, I really believe there's something here. I really, really do. So I personally feel okay investing a decent amount of my net worth into it. Now, everyone's going to have their own limit. Some people would be 5%, some people would be 2%, some people would be 1%, some people would be 10%. It's a very individual question. Anyone that asks me, should I invest? It's a very individual question. What I will say is that I'm very confident about, and I would say don't invest any more than you're not willing to lose. So if you're having to think about the price and check the price every day, you've invested too much. I don't check the price when it explodes or falls. Okay, when it falls, I'll buy a little bit more. When it explodes, I'm like, okay, cool. When it goes up really high, okay, cool. I don't check it every day. I hardly ever check it because it's like that's not a way to live. I've been there where I've had to check it every day, and it's not a good way to live your life. You do not want to be constantly worrying while you're at Thanksgiving with your fucking family. What's the price of cryptocurrency? What's the price of this thing? Because wealth is a piece of the pie. You need enough to be able to do your thing, but you don't overdo it because it will make you. If you're having to think about this, you've lost. The point of building wealth is that you're able to think less about wealth, not to think more about it. So if you have to think more about it, you've lost. So, I would say don't invest any more than I want to lose completely. And what I'll say is if you are interested and you want to put some, I'd recommend doing like 50% Bitcoin, 50% Ethereum, something like that. And then if you have other projects that you think are interesting, but what I will say is look where the people are actually building apps. NFTs, a lot of people are, that's all happening on Ethereum. It's all happening on Ethereum. Decentralized finance, it's all happening on Ethereum. Now, there's other networks where people have higher transaction speeds and things like that, but I always follow the users, follow where the developers are building. That's the only thing that matters to me. Users and where the people are actually building, because you can have some pie in the sky thing that says, 1 trillion transactions per second, and it literally cures cancer. But if no one's using it, then I'm not interested in it. Ethereum and Bitcoin are used. Bitcoin has shown the test of time. It's withstood the test of time. Ethereum has more upside, I think. The price could increase more, but again, the price, who the fuck knows. But I think the price has more upside. Bitcoin's about 40K right now, 42K, and Ethereum's at 3K. I checked yesterday. So I think there's a lot more upside on the Ethereum side, because there's a lot happening there, and I think we're just scratching the surface. But it's possible that Ethereum doesn't win out. It's possible that someone else eats its lunch. But what I will say is if you're going to invest in Ethereum, stake it. Coinbase has a great staking. Now, Coinbase, I'm not going to get into it now, but staking, they're moving from proof of work to proof of stake. You can stake your Ethereum and get 5% interest. So if you buy one, you get 5% interest, or if you buy 100, that's a fuck ton of money. What was that, 300K? You'll essentially get 5 free Ether every year based on we'll see the interest rates fluctuate a little bit, but you get 5% back. But when you lock it up, Coinbase call it Ethereum too. When you lock it up, you can't trade it. So that's another thing. If you lock it up, you'll be able to trade it in the future, but you won't be able to trade it right away. So that's something to think about. If you lock it, you'll get the interest on it. You can't trade it. You can't sell it. So that's something to think about. So I have about 60% locked away in Ethereum to staking, because I'm not planning on selling anytime soon, and I'm sure they're gonna make it tradable pretty soon. So I'm not worried about it. I would do that if you're gonna do it. Stake it. Stake it. If you're gonna have it, just might as well stake it. I use Coinbase Pro. I think the fees are lower than the regular Coinbase consumer. I also just like using it. I think it's just I don't know. It's just cooler. I don't know. It's cooler, faster, easier. It's more fun in my opinion. But to stake it, you have to put it on Coinbase.com. And you can easily transact between Coinbase Pro and Coinbase.com. They're the same company, just different platforms. So you can transfer it instantly onto either platform. So it's all good. And Bitcoin. Buy some Bitcoin. I mean, it's if you want to get in that space, just buy some. Don't buy enough that you have to think about it. Also, get a wallet app. Try transacting. Get a Bitcoin wallet on your phone. Send some to someone. Just use it. It's very fun to use, and then track your transaction. You can track your transaction in space and see where it is. Has it arrived yet? How many block confirmations have happened? It's really fun to actually fucking use. There's a big difference between reading about it and actually using it and feeling it. Feeling how slow it is, or feeling how fast it is. Feeling it hit your account. Feeling what that looks like. Like it's a very visceral thing to actually go for it. So, I would rip it. So, okay, this was epic. I'm going to do more. This is the No Gradient Dick Lucas show. I'm going to do more of these. So, if you can tweet at me too, if you want me to read through something, give my opinions on it. I think this will be next time I'll probably do a little bit faster. This turned into a whole thing. I want to keep these probably shorter in the future, but I'm trying to get back at it, try to do, we'll see how many I do. But I don't know. It is fun. It's fun. It's fun reading through this. It's fun talking about it. It's fun being out in the sun. It's fun. You know what? I've got to say, people aren't really looking at me and shit. They're kind of letting me do my thing. Like I said, people do a lot of crazy shit out here, and they kind of just let it. No one's like, oh, what is he doing? It's like, I respect that. Love LA. I love this place. Very chill. Epic. Okay, well, this has been fun. Thank you. Anyone that's in my kind of absence who's hit me up, be like, yo, where's the pod at? I really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is super fucking fun. And God bless. One love. Follow. You can find this wherever podcasts are available. Search No Space Gradient. We're on YouTube too. Also search, follow me on Twitter, Dick C. Lucas. I'll share things I'm reading. I'll share hot takes. You know the deal. But this has been a pleasure. Thanks for listening. One love.